Good Thursday morning. It is January the 22nd, 2026. You found us here on the Weather Desk, and what a show we have for you. We are tracking a major winter storm, and because of its potential impacts, and I think they will be significant for the region here in the mid-Atlantic and down to our south and out to the west, really off to the north as well, we've got a special 1 hour long extended edition of the Weather Desk. I'm meteorologist Craig Moeller. We do the Weather Desk each and every weekday morning starting at 9, where we tackle the top weather headlines of the day. And today, no doubt, we're going to run into our first topic, and it's a big one. We do have this massive winter storm for the eastern United States and really the southern parts of the country as well. You're going to see the area under winter storm watch in just a moment. It's amazing. It spans right now 1,800 miles. That's how wide this thing is. So a major area under this winter storm watch. And we're talking about really significant impacts from very heavy snow to very dangerous ice likely to develop across parts of the country. We will be breaking all of that down. We're talking regional storm preps, and we're also keeping an eye down across North Carolina. In just a few minutes, we're going to have a live interview with a colleague, Chris Mulcahy, one of the meteorologists down at WCNC, our sister station. And we're going to talk with him about some of their concerns down in North Carolina and out towards the mountains there just to the west of Charlotte. As we take a look, we're also going to have a live interview with AAA on travel tips and the major impacts expected across the country. As you know, there already airlines are allowing, cancellations or adjustments to travel plans at no additional cost, because this is going to be such a widespread event impacting so many travelers. So we'll talk about that, car safety, and some other things, and team coverage. Hunter Forrest, my colleague, will be back in studio with me, and we're going to discuss the complexity of this system, why it's been so interesting. We've talked about this since Monday morning. I had a weather impact alert for this upcoming weekend for our viewing area. But the main threat has shifted a bit. It was looking like a lot of heavy snow at the beginning of the week. That's what all the models were pointing towards. Now the concern is much greater that we're going to deal with ice and not as much snow. And I'll show you how all of this has been evolving. Now here's our massive winter storm watch. You can see there are a few areas under advisory and some winter storm warnings up in the northern parts of New York State, back across Oklahoma and northwest Arkansas, the north central part of Texas there. There's an area under winter storm warning already, an advisory back out across Colorado and back over across southern Montana. But this large area shaded in light blue, this is the area under winter storm watch. And as we zoom into our region here in the mid-Atlantic, this includes all of Virginia. You can see Maryland, Delaware, all included in that. For the North Carolina portion of our viewing audience here with our broadcast signal from 13 News Now, serving Southeast Virginia, Northeast North Carolina, you can see coastal Carolina is not included in the winter storm watch. They're likely going to see more rain in the mix. They may get a little bit of snow or a little bit of mixed precipitation early, but it should be warm enough that they deal with more rain. That's why that winter storm watch runs through Chowan and Gates County back over towards Hertford and Bertie and areas out to the west of that, closer to the coast. They are spared this winter storm watch as of now. Let's take a look at what's happening with the satellite. The radar images had a few sprinkles down to the south. That, not anything wintry to worry about. In fact, temperatures this morning were in the 40s, very mild. We're going to hit a high today in Hampton Roads around 60 degrees. This is the warmest day that we're going to enjoy for a long time. We're talking the upcoming weekend and all of next week and potentially beyond that, temperatures well below our normals. So we're going to be looking at temperatures highs in the low to mid 30s for much of next week. The reason for that, there's Arctic air spilling into the eastern U.S., and that sets the stage. That, along with some Gulf moisture being drawn up. There's an area of low pressure that's going to move along, and then another's going to form off the Carolina coast and kind of come up, providing all of this moisture into the cold air, setting up our wintry weather. So let's take a look at how a couple of the models play out. First, the GFS. This is the global forecast system. It's the U.S. global model, and this is looking ahead to Saturday. You can see snow back across the central U.S. Been getting calls and text messages from friends and family back in St. Louis, down across portions of southern Missouri and around the Memphis area, saying, hey, are we going to get some snow? There is that chance. You can see the greater concern for all that freezing rain and potential icing across portions of North Texas, southern Oklahoma, and Arkansas, back into northern Mississippi and Alabama. For our area, I think we'll see chances for moisture down to the south and out to the west earlier on Saturday. It's really going to be Saturday evening before the snow cranks up, and I do expect snow for much of the area as we go overnight Saturday night and into early Sunday. You'll notice how these areas shaded in this magenta or pinkish color here work northward. This is the potential for mix and freezing rain, some sleet in there, but we're also likely to start seeing some freezing rain as warmer air pushes in. We'll explain that process, why there's going to be that changeover. And then note the rain working up the coast into the day on Sunday. And by Sunday afternoon and evening, we'll be seeing a lot of rain kind of knocking down any of the snow that falls from overnight Saturday. Now, as it pulls away Monday, we could see a little bit of mixing on the backside. That's the GFS. Here's the European model, the Euro, as we frequently refer to it. You can see, again, that snow back across the central U.S., the mix coming in, very similar thinking, but it looks like more ice potentially with the European model. There's that rain at the Outer Banks I was talking about as we started. And then again, snow across portions of Virginia. This is Saturday evening. So I think, all the models pointing at least a chance at snow at the beginning for much of our immediate viewing area, and then the snow more widespread off to the north. As we go, though, the Euro quickly changes it over to rain and keeps it as rain at the coast, but that ice potential farther inland. So those are two of the big global models we look at. We also look at the Canadian. We've been looking at these ensemble models for a while, and I want to talk to you about the trends in the models over the past week. Now, when I came in on Monday, mentioned I got in early to do daybreak, about 3:30 or so, was looking over all the models. I said, snow, 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 snow. They were all pointing to snow, and at least, they all identified this significant winter storm. Now, we've said all along, models can and do change, and there's a good chance the totals that were projected by the models here, that wasn't our forecast, that was what the models were suggesting. He said, these numbers are really high, they'll likely come down, but they were really, really impressive as it was looking Monday ahead to this upcoming weekend. We came in, some of the models were suggesting we could see over a foot of snow in Norfolk and up to about 20 inches to 2 feet of snow or so around Richmond. Okay, again, Monday, all the models suggesting snow. By Tuesday, the runs were showing more rain at the coast and then a mix inland. And yesterday, it became apparent that the ice threat was increasing and the snow chances were going to be going down, especially near the coast. That's been the trend over the past 3 days. We went from tons of snow to snow and some mixing or maybe a little bit of ice to, hey, start thinking about the ice, and that's where we sit now. The greatest threat, I think, to our inland areas is going to be significant ice. Still, there will be some significant snow, mainly to the north. Wind should not be as big a deal. Maybe see some gusts 25 to 30 miles per hour, but that's not too bad. The problem, though, is when you get winds like that with ice on power lines, and that's an issue we're going to address a little bit later in the show as well. All right, how about our forecast confidence? Well, I'm very highly confident that we're going to see the whole array of wintry precipitation, from snow at the beginning to mix and some sleet. I think we're also going to deal with freezing rain, especially the interior parts of our viewing region, and then back across the Piedmonts of Virginia, North Carolina. Freezing rain, certainly a big concern, and rain at the coast. All of that in play. Highly confident. All right, as far as snow totals, this is the one that we're least confident in because the general picture is becoming clear. Snow chances greater to the north and out to the west. Rain chances more at the coast and down to the south. That's fine, but the models still vary in amounts, and the timing we're highly confident as well, as that's remained very consistent. Saturday afternoon through Monday morning. By Monday afternoon, things should be improving. Let's take a look at the model snow odds running the ensembles. We have the European model, we have the GFS and the Euro AI, and you can see these arrows, the red arrows trending down from the chances for 1 inch or more. The Euro's taking it down to 60% now for Norfolk. For 3 inches or more, just 20%. So the Euro's not buying a lot of snow in Norfolk. Okay, this is specific for Norfolk. This is model data. Again, not the forecast, but the model output here. So Euro's saying, it's not looking so hot. The GFS has actually gone up a little bit in the chances for at least an inch. They're saying 90%, 50% chance for 3 inches or more, 10% chances for 6 inches or more. And then the Euro AI at 70%, that's for 1 inch. 30% for 3 inches or more, and 10% for 6 inches or more. This one was really biting on it early, but they have been backing off, and you can see the Euro AI backing away from those higher snow totals. So again, no surprises here. The track of the center of low pressure has been a little farther to the north and a little farther west, bringing in more warm air. As you look at the Euro, we might see an inch of snow overnight, Saturday night into early Sunday morning before the Euro says it's going to transition to rain or mix, knocking down the totals here. Inland areas still a bit more, and then some heavier amounts of snow where you don't get as much warm air mixing in as you do in this part of the region. So Tappahannock up through northern parts of Virginia, back to the mountains, maybe some heavier snow up that way with the Euro. The GFS still biting on that idea of some heavier snow around Richmond, West Point, and Tappahannock. It does bring in some warmer air, and there is that transition to rain. That's why the numbers here are lower. Norfolk, though, yesterday the GFS was saying 4.6, 4.7 inches. Now it's up to 5.2, so that's actually gone up a little bit. This is a greater concern, again, for our inland areas, the potential for significant amounts of ice, and this is through the afternoon Sunday and Sunday night. Look at what the Euro, this is, again, model projection here, model output, not our forecast that we're going to see 2¼ inches of ice at West Point or over 2 inches at Richmond. But you see how the Euro's saying, hey, I think there's going to be some significant amounts of ice. This is what we are looking at, and this is why we are so concerned with that significant ice inland. Note Virginia Beach, Kill Devil Hills, Elizabeth City along the eastern shore. Not as big a deal because we're going to get more rain in. It'll be a little warmer right there at the coast. A little bit of ice over the western parts of the metro, but once you get up on the peninsula, middle peninsula, northern neck, and areas farther inland, that's where you have your better chances for ice. Now, you get a 1/4 inch or less, you have to be very careful. You avoid unnecessary travel. You get light ice on the trees and scattered power outages. When you get a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch, this is where you have icy roads, broken tree limbs, sometimes numerous power outages. The problem that we're looking at for Sunday is that we could see over a 1/2 inch for those inland areas coating trees and roads and power lines. That leads to very dangerous roads, in some cases impassable. You have widespread tree damage, and longer-term outages are also possible. We'll have a report from Dominion Energy on what they're doing to prepare. So here's the outlook with the GFS. You can see again the snow coming in, snow initially Saturday night. We wake up to a little bit of that in the morning on Sunday. There's a transition to mix and potentially freezing rain. Rain at the coast, then more of a transition later in the day, kind of knocking down the snow totals. And then you can see, again, the ice out to the west. This is kind of filling in through the overnight Sunday and into early Monday. There is that potential, again, for a heavy coating in some places. So we're going to be monitoring this. These are the areas that we're really concerned with, the power outages down into North Carolina, around Raleigh, and back towards Charlotte as well. So these are areas of real concern with the GFS through Monday morning. As we go through the day on Monday, it pulls away. We could get some more mix on the backside, and then things improve after that. But it will turn a lot chillier as we go later in the next week. Now, the European model says, okay, yeah, you're going to see maybe a chance for some snow or some mix at the onset. You see that for a little while, but it's much more quick to change over to the rain. So we're looking at rain developing as we get into early Sunday, the potential for freezing rain, sleet, some mixed precipitation, farther inland, snow up towards Richmond, Tappahannock, areas in northern Virginia. As we continue through the day on Sunday, more rain for this area, a little bit warmer solution with the European model, and then we've got that potential for the heavier icing out to the west. You've got what we call cold air damming taking place, where there's going to be a lot of cold air in place. So as the low, which is now tracking, instead of tracking way off here and farther to the south, throwing moisture into very cold air, it's coming in a little closer, and that's wedging and shoving warmer, moist air into this, above this cold air mass. And as it falls, what falls as rain may be freezing up and coating the roads, the trees, the power lines. Those are the concerns through Sunday afternoon and into Sunday evening. Again, rain at the coast and a prolonged period of perhaps freezing rain or mixed wintry precipitation inland. Really concerning there. Now, as the system pulls away, we've got chances for showers here as we go through the day on Monday morning early, but that moves out, and then we're going to see the improvements after that. But much, much colder air set across the region for next week, with highs staying in the low 30s, generally speaking. All right, we do have these winter storm alerts across not only Hampton Roads and our immediate area, but I mentioned across North Carolina as well. We're going to talk some more about cold air damming, what that process is, why this is setting us up for the potential for more ice, and we'll have a lot more on this extended edition of the Weather Desk after this break. Well, good morning and welcome back to the Weather Desk. We're going to pick up talking about cold air damming and what's going on here across the region as we zoom in and take a look at, again, our area under the winter storm watch. The big concern here, again, potential significant icing across the central parts of Virginia and North Carolina. We've got what we call cold air damming setting up for the weekend. And that's where you've got higher pressure setting up to the north. You get this wind coming down with this Arctic air kind of getting trapped along between the mountains and the coast. And with that cold air in place, as moisture overrides this coming up from the south, that colder air is overrun, and this is where you could get into some really significant icing. So that's one of the things we're going to be watching to see how all of this goes. But we're looking at frigid conditions into early Saturday as that moisture comes in and overrides it. That's one of those big concerns for our neighbors down to the south. And again, we'll be talking with folks, we hope to, in just a little bit from down in Charlotte. Now, one of the other things that we've been keeping an eye to is the snow to rain ratios, or the liquid ratios with snow. That is often an indication what we have to figure out before really determining how much snow we get. So we have a closer look at those mixing ratios and the snow ratios with my colleague Taylor Stephenson.
There's a potential for an impactful winter storm in Hampton Roads this weekend. When forecasting possible snowfall totals, we analyze snow ratios. Snow ratios estimate snowfall accumulation utilizing the relationship between the air temperature and the amount of precipitable water. Precipitable water is the amount of liquid water that could fall on a given day. So let's go through 3 basic math examples. And to keep the math easy, we'll work with just 1 inch of water. If temperatures hover just above freezing, the snow ratio is about 5 to 1. For every 1 inch of precipitable water, on a day with temperatures near 34 degrees, about 5 inches of snow will accumulate. This scenario would produce heavy, wet snow. If the air temperature is slightly below freezing, the snow ratio is 10 to 1, 10 inches of snowfall for every 1 inch of water. This is the typical snow ratio. If the air temperature is in the teens, the snow ratio then climbs to about 20 to 1, or 20 inches of snow for every 1 inch of water. This scenario would produce dry and fluffy snow. For 13 News Now, I'm meteorologist Taylor Stephenson.
All right, we're going to talk about the cold air coming and the impacts on our roads this upcoming weekend. You can see as we look nationally just how chilly it is up in Bismarck, North Dakota, 3 degrees below zero. Minneapolis, 6 degrees, 15 in Chicago. Very cold. Temperatures here in Norfolk are actually going to warm up to near 60 today, but you see the cold air spilling to the south into the southeast. This is Arctic air, and we're going to be super chilly heading into early Saturday as this moisture arrives, snow, and again, that cold air that I said kind of wedged in and dammed up against the Appalachians there. So we do have the concerns again for some ice out there on the roads. Now, as we take a look at the outlook here with the Futurecast, what you're going to see again, the snow coming into play, and that's going to be a concern with the with that snow working in Saturday night and then into Sunday. We're talking about the freezing rain and the ice. So this is something that we will be paying very close attention to as we take a look at potential travel delays. You can see that there will be more and more issues as we head to the weekend. Not too bad today, a little bit going on up around the Great Lakes and into early Friday, but as the storm system starts to develop and take shape, you can see into early Saturday here. And as we take it out farther into the weekend, these travel issues are going to come here. So again, in general, when we talk about travel, I guess the primary advice is stay off the roads if you have to, or if you can, just avoid travel. But if you absolutely have to head somewhere in the wintry weather, Ryan Adcock with AAA Tidewater has a few tips for traveling in the ice and snow. Ryan, good morning. Thank you for joining us. Could be a big weekend with a lot of headaches for travelers.
Of course. Good morning to you, Craig. And just like you were saying, avoiding any non-essential travel this weekend is going to be your number one safety tip and safety practice you could follow out there on the roads.
Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking, when we have this, we always tell people just to avoid travel, but sometimes you have to get out there. And there are some things you can do to maybe prep your vehicle and get out ahead of this a little bit. What are the important reminders that you would give people watching right now?
Absolutely. So time is your friend, so you can do things right now to prepare your vehicle so that if you do have to get out on the roads and travel this weekend, you can be safer. You can make sure that your tires have enough tread on them, that your windshield wipers are operational and not dry rotted or anything like that. And then as well, making sure that you have an emergency trunk kit in your vehicle that has things like an extra coat or a blanket, some non-perishable food, an extra phone charger, and anything that you can use, especially if you're traveling in the darker hours of the day, anything that you can use to make your vehicle more visible to others if you are stuck there on the side of the road.
It's one of those things where people can sometimes think, oh, I grew up driving in the north and I'm not worried about, this or that. But with the conditions, ice in particular, it doesn't matter, even if you think you are a good snow driver, let alone how bad all the other, it's always the other guy, right? But when it comes to ice, there's really no good conditions for driving on ice. You just, I guess that's a different game altogether.
Absolutely. And just, if you can see it visually, just avoid driving over those surfaces. And then if you if you must, just driving with extreme caution. We should be driving with extreme caution in general this weekend, but specifically, like you were saying, with those icy conditions that we're expecting, extra caution must be taken when you're behind the wheel this weekend.
Ryan, I don't want to throw a curveball at you, but I know you with AAA, you've probably been hearing already some of the airlines already kind of waiving, changing, fees and other things for airlines. This is one of those storms when you have something this big with AAA. I mean, you guys see all kinds of impacts from air to roads, and obviously even getting around. Sometimes there can be issues with rail lines. How much do you see these types of spikes, and what are you guys anticipating this weekend?
Obviously, just anytime that there's that winter weather, just like you were saying, the roads and auto travel is impacted, but also air travel is impacted as well. So just encouraging, if you are traveling by air this weekend, to download whatever airline you're flying, download their app, and that is where you will have the most up-to-date information. And if there are any changes to your flight itinerary, that'll be where you'll find those. And that's what we encourage people to do, is just have that information there in the palm of their hand so that they can have it as quickly as possible. But also having potentially just a plan B in mind for a different flight you could take on a different day, or just preparing as much as you can ahead of time, whether you are traveling by air or by road this weekend.
All right, all great tips. Ryan, thank you so much for taking a few moments this morning. Really appreciate it. And we always like to check back with you when we have these types of impactful events. Thanks again.
Of course, Greg.
All right. Well, here I do want to pass along again a few safe winter kind of reminders here if you have to be out on the roads. And again, the primary thing is avoid driving. As Ryan mentioned, now is the time. We've got a day near 60 degrees here in Norfolk. Now's the time to check your vehicle, check your tires, make sure you've got adequate tread on those tires. And you don't want to go out, you've got the old penny test where if you can't see Lincoln's, head, then you've got too thin of a tire there. Or if you can see his head, the tread is too thin. You don't want to go out there if you've got worn tires, that's for sure. And then the tire pressure, absolutely critical that is in good shape. You want to remove ice and snow that does fall on your car before ever venturing out. You can't go out with reduced visibility. And remember, do not tailgate. Keep your car windows, mirrors, lights clear of snow and ice. And you want to keep back from other vehicles. And this is an important reminder, don't crowd plows. Vehicles out there, obviously first responders as well. If you see anybody out on the roads during winter driving, you need to give them extra space. Please be extra careful. And again, with skidding, you want to avoid accelerating and braking too hard. If you start to skid, slowly lift off the accelerator and turn into the direction of the skid. If you jump in the brakes, which might be intuitive, that's going to send you going in all kinds of troublesome directions, okay? You don't want to do that. Ease off the accelerator, let the car slow down, and eventually the tires come back in. It's similar to what we say with hydroplaning as well. So some pretty important stuff there. We really want everybody to be careful. And as we look ahead to Sunday and Monday, you may have to take, say, 5 to 10 minutes to scrape off some of the heavier ice that could occur, especially those inland areas. Again, near the coast, I expect more rain than ice and snow, but those inland areas, there is a potential for very, very heavy icing. All right, we're going to take another short break. In another 2 minutes, we'll be back with more from the Weather Desk. Welcome back to the Weather Desk. People across the U.S. are rushing to stock up on supplies ahead of this winter storm. From ice melt to groceries, store shelves are emptying fast. A.J. Nwoko heard from people scrambling to prepare in Richmond.
Originally New York City, so I'm used to the snow, and so I find it interesting that everybody in Richmond really panics.
At Home Depot in Chesterfield, folks like Steven were after one thing.
I was looking for salt, for ice melt, to prepare, just to prepare ahead of time for that.
He says just a few hours in today, it was already hard to come by.
I snuck out from work at lunchtime here and to try to beat the crowds, but that was a failure. The lines at the Costco gas station are like outrageous, and inside Costco and Lowe's is the same thing. It's kind of like a madhouse right now.
However, Steve Tutrello beat the rush.
It was not too bad. I went bright and early because I wanted to get in before I had work.
By noon, the Home Depot was already empty of ice melt, scrapers, and nearly every snow shovel.
Yeah, we got plenty of propane and a little heater, and we got stuff to cook with if the power goes out. So, I mean, we're ready for it.
And if you were on the hunt for groceries.
But we just went to Wegmans, and that was a madhouse.
They're out of bread, they're out of a lot of things.
There's no chicken. Just maybe 1 or 2 packs left.
All day Wednesday, parking lots were packed with expectations almost as varied as the forecast.
It's too early to tell, but it's getting close. But it's going to be a mess either way.
A little apprehensive, a little excited. Hopefully we get some sledding in.
Seems like it's going to be bad and weather-wise, so people need to stay at home if they can.
As for advice, these shoppers say, don't wait.
I guess go as soon as you can. I think people should probably try to not panic buy, but if they already have, then you might as well go now.
If you're waiting till Thursday or Friday, it's going to be, empty shelves and stuff because already all the cheese was gone, the eggs were real low.
And if nothing else, Janet says it's not just about what you can buy to prepare, but also what you can bring.
If you have to go shopping, take your sense of humor. Be patient and remember that other people, you don't know their situation.
Oh, you got to. You're not going to survive unless you have a sense of humor.
I'm glad they've got a good attitude about all of this, and I think a lot of folks will wind up taking this in stride. But again, the threat is real. We need to talk about an increasing threat for power outages, especially inland. With that in mind, crews with Dominion Energy and Community Electric Cooperative are taking extra steps now to make sure your lights stay on during the storm. Madison Schlegel spoke with the utilities companies about how they're preparing.
Our meteorologists are tracking snow and sleet chances starting on Saturday. Community Electric Cooperative services homes and businesses in Isle of Wight, Southampton, and Suffolk. They're expecting downed tree limbs from extreme weather.
We are in the western Tidewater area, so it is more rural for us. Tree effects that would affect our territory.
Jonathan Thompson, COO for Community Electric Cooperative, adds their crews will be on standby throughout the weekend.
We have our mutual aid agreements with our other sister co-ops that we can pull from. And as well as contractors that we have regular business operations with.
Sharice Newsom with Dominion Energy says their crews have met throughout the week to assess what's expected.
We can tap additional resources if we need it. The other thing we're doing is staging crews strategically. So each area has a contingent of line workers and operations crews.
Newsom says Dominion's meteorologists aren't as worried for the snow, but say ice is their biggest concern. Newsom says ice accumulation on roadways and power lines has the potential to cause accidents, knock down power lines, or create widespread outages.
Add to that extremely cold temperatures, then that ice sticks around even longer. It's not melting as quickly as we'd like to see. So that can not only extend restoration times, but that can also lead to repeat outages.
If you do experience a power outage, Dominion and Community Electric Cooperative have ways to track and report them. Madison Schlegel, 13 News Now.
All right, so we're going to take a look at why there is this increased threat of power outages. And again, the ice is a big concern. Always, you get a power line, you get ice on it, and as the wind blows, that takes that ice-covered line and it creates a kind of a harmonic motion where they start to move what's called line galloping. And you get that, and that can sway and eventually bring down some of the power lines they can touch. Think about this, just a half an inch of a coating of ice can weigh 500 pounds on those lines. So again, a lot of weight pulling down on those lines. And that's why those above ground lines are particularly susceptible to these ice storms. So again, Dominion Energy, they are excellent at pre-staging and getting folks ready to respond. They'll be working hard. And think about this too, no matter what we get over the weekend, if you see line crews out there working, you want to give them extra space to do what they need to, especially if it's icy out there and they're trying to restore power in the midst of dealing with the ice. Think about that. Just give them the extra space, and they'll work to get us back up. And obviously, never go near down power lines. Assume anything you do see down is hot. All right, let's talk about the ice impact and the ice potential. Look at this with the European model. It is looking like we could see major to extreme impacts from ice from Tappahannock back over Richmond area, Petersburg, down through Emporia, Roanoke Rapids, back down towards Durham, Farmville, Lynchburg, South Boston, all of these areas in central Virginia. And it's really an interesting setup. I want to bring my colleague in. Hunter, I'll welcome you over to the weather desk. It's always good to have you here. We were talking earlier, you know, initially the system, it was all snow. It was going to be cold. We knew a lot of times if the track changes a little bit, that can change up how the atmosphere is kind of stacked up with temperatures, and that determines what we're going to see.
Exactly. I mean, we're expected to see pretty much every single type of precip around here, from snow to sleet, freezing rain, unfortunately, which is the most dangerous type of winter precipitation, and even some rain, which is why those snow totals really kind of got chopped as we went through the last couple of days, which, you know, is to be expected if you're that far out. Models shift and change, and, you know, that's what we try to tell people because, you know, we're trying to give you the most updated information.
So you've got to look at kind of how the varying types of precipitation can form. Why don't you go ahead and give us a quick look at that?
Yeah, so normally, as a rule, precipitation normally starts off as snow way up high into the atmosphere. And for it to stay snow down to the surface, the column of air it's falling through has to stay at or below freezing. But sometimes, like we're expected to see, are these sneaky warm noses making their way into the upper parts of the atmosphere. So let's take a look here at sleet. You have cold air aloft, you have snow falling, and then there's this layer of some warmer air. That snow melts, but then it encounters another column of cold air, and it refreezes into sleet. And it has enough time to refreeze before it reaches the ground. And you can kind of hear sleet as it's hitting the ground. Sleet has a beat. That's how you could remember that it's sleet. But let's take a look at freezing rain. Starts off as snow high up into the atmosphere, but it encounters a layer of warm air that is much larger than sleet. So that snow melts as it goes down through this cold or this warm layer, and then by the time it reaches the ground, it encounters a small thin layer of freezing temperatures. So what happens then is that you get this liquid freezing on contact down at the surface. So it freezes on, you know, the roadways, cars, power lines, and that's what can lead to some major power outages. And that's what we could possibly see as we head into this upcoming weekend. As for rain, of course, starts off as snow way up into the atmosphere, and then it's just a warm layer all the way down to the surface. So that's what rain is, just a warm layer through the atmosphere. But of course, for it to be snow, it's got to be cold through that entire layer. Craig, back to you.
All right, Hunter, thanks so much, and we'll chat a little bit more right at the end of the show. Want to let folks know we are going to have more detail on who's likely to see more snow and who's likely to see more ice. Hunter, it's good to see you out there. Kind of hung out. I was wondering if they were going to get off you there. All right, like I said, we're going to take a short break, and we will break down the when, the impact, and what you need to know right after this. All right, we're going to take a look again. We've got our weather impact alert, which I declared Monday morning based on all the models pointing to this winter storm. We said, let's get out of this ahead of time so folks know what's coming up the following weekend. And a lot of folks have expressed appreciation. Again, the main threat has shifted from snow, which honestly, if you were to take a vote, everybody's like, hey, this is going to be a lot of fun, heavy snow. Well, unfortunately, we had to come off the super high amounts of snow, and it's trending more towards mixed and dangerous icy conditions. So I know for you real snow lovers that were hoping to have a foot of snow or more, it's a disappointment to get lower totals. But nonetheless, you have to be prepared. Know that a wintry mix is coming. I think snow initially, changing over to mix, and then rain, freezing rain inland, as we've been talking a lot about that, and then bitterly cold temperatures next week. You have to stay tuned for updates. You take a look at this temperature trend. After today's high near 60, tomorrow closer to 50, and then look at this run of days with temperatures in the 30s. We may get back up to 40 on Wednesday, but generally you're talking 30s for the following stretch of days, and many of those days in the lower 30s. So really, really cold. With all of this coming up, cities across Hampton Roads have also been preparing to respond to the wintry weather headed this way. Jeremiah Beatty spoke to a public works official in Newport News, where crews are already treating the roads.
So we oversee all the snow removal operations for the city, and that would be brine application, using spreaders and using plows throughout the city.
And, you know, we are expecting a snowstorm. It's very likely this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. And when you hear about that in the forecast, what goes through your mind hearing that cold weather is on its way?
Yeah, this one definitely looks like it's going to be bringing quite a bit of snow. You know, the forecast has changed a little bit, but it's still calling for quite a bit. So we've already started doing our brine application. We'll put that down on all of our major arterial routes throughout the city, all of our bridges and overpass, and we start that today. And then we'll move into 12-hour shifts, 24-hour operation on Saturday.
Gotcha. So you guys kind of laid out a game plan. What areas around Newport News do you worry the most about?
So we mainly want to take care of all of our arterial routes, which are our primary routes, so police and fire can maintain access throughout the winter event, and anything around our hospitals and things of that nature.
Yeah. How do you decide where crews will go first?
So we have a priority listing. You can see that on our website that we have out there, and it identifies all of the routes that we'll be addressing throughout the city.
Could you name a few just for this interview?
Yeah, Warwick Boulevard, Jefferson Avenue, Mercury Boulevard, Bland Boulevard, and then also our major collector roads that go into our neighborhoods.
And I know, like you said, operations are kind of already underway. What's the biggest thing we can tell drivers? As you know, crews will be out obviously, and over the next few days, what's something we can tell them just to be aware of?
Yeah, certainly if you see our vehicles out there, please give them space to work. You know, they're out there trying to clear the roads and make them safe. So just make sure you leave space around those vehicles so they can operate.
And when does the work actually end for your crews?
So I don't know that it will. After the snow event, we'll resume right back to our other operations, which we're in the middle of loose leaf collection. So we'll continue with that.
And I wanted to ask, you said behind us is where you guys keep your salt dome. Is that what you refer to it as? And brine trucks. Kind of walk me through how many trucks you have, how much salt is back there ready to go out.
Okay, we have a couple thousand tons of salt already inside of our salt dome, and we keep 30,000 gallons of brine on hand. We currently have 25 snow plows that we'll put out, and then also 9 spreader trucks and 6 brine trucks.
And okay, just one other thought for residents. You said you guys will be focusing on those high priority roads, primary roads mostly. For people living along those secondary roads, that can be a little tricky. Is there any tricks or tips you have for people kind of navigating the roads around their neighborhood?
Yeah, so we do not clear in residential neighborhoods, and it looks like the temperature is going to stay, below freezing for a couple of days, even after the event. So it'll probably take a while for those to clear up.
Some good reminders here again. Give those crews plenty of room. Sounds like Newport News got a plan there together to get everybody through this, and I'm sure all of our local municipalities are ready to go, but we are all watching. Now, this morning, we've just been watching some showers come through. I want to get into the forecast here for Hampton Roads specifically. Skies have become partly to mostly sunny, and we're going to enjoy the sunshine through the day. A warm day today, but things are changing up. You see the winds shifting around on Friday, and eventually much, much colder air. It's going to be chillier on Friday with a high closer to 50 at the airport. We'll see temperatures a little bit milder inland. But as we go into Saturday, that's when the really cold air arrives. Look at this Saturday morning, mid-20s, and it's just not going to warm up. We're going to see that Arctic air really settling in. Notice a few snow showers offshore here, but you're going to notice the wet weather, or snowy weather, I should say, coming in and overtaking the region Saturday night and into early Sunday. Again, initially snow. We'll get what we get in terms of snowfall early Sunday morning. So it'll be Saturday night through Sunday morning. That's when we'll deal with the snow. And then we're going to be busy for you right here at 13 News Now and 13 News Now Plus, covering the conditions early Sunday morning. I look forward to coming in and working over the weekend and helping cover and forecast all of the stuff that's going on. Later in the day Sunday, we're going to see more of that transition back over to rain, but I think the ice continues inland. That's going to be the big concern. Look at the sky right now. Hampton Roads looking great. This is the view from the Jordan Bridge. You can see looking back towards downtown Norfolk and around some of the different marine terminals, how things are so sunny right now, and the temperature is really mild. This is the Toms Creek Window Company Sky View. It is 49. Our normal high is 50. So here we are mid-morning, and we're almost to the normal high. Winds are southwest at 13 miles per hour. Out on the waters today, 15 to 5-knot winds. Winds easing a bit. We've seen some gusts close to 20 earlier this morning just offshore. Seas running 2 to 3 feet. High tide at 11:13 and the low tide at 5:27. Things pretty peaceful out there, relatively speaking. There are gale watches set up for the weekend as we get into Saturday, especially those winds expected to pick up. Highs today near 60 in Norfolk, upper 50s Virginia Beach, low 60s Suffolk, back farther inland, upper 50s on the peninsula, the middle peninsula around Gloucester. Matthews a bit cooler, 54, temperatures in the low 50s on the eastern shore. Down to the south, had some sprinkles earlier this morning. We're now enjoying more sunshine that way as well. Upper 50s at the Outer Banks, low 60s for inland portions of northeast North Carolina. Overnight tonight, the low near 34. Tomorrow, we're going to be back to 50 with variably cloudy conditions. Showers possible, mainly in North Carolina. And then as we look ahead, you can see the conditions there turning. I got the wrong 7-day forecast up. Can you believe that, Hunter? That was such a rookie move. All right, so what I'm going to do, let's take this graphic full, and then I'm magically going to switch to the other 7-day forecast. That was the one that we were using yesterday with the reveal. But what I want to show you right now is not this one. Let's take a look at the actual 7-day with that weather impact alert for Saturday afternoon and evening. Here it comes, a Saturday afternoon and evening, Sunday, and into early Monday. That's when we're going to see the snow develop Saturday, then into Sunday, more mix, sleet, ice possible inland with freezing rain, and then on Monday it pulls away as a mix. Improvements after that. Want to come back, and Hunter now joins me here at the Weather Pod talking about this. Your thoughts on this? I mean, you know, we've been talking about it since really you saw probably the earliest signs of the potential storm last weekend.
Yeah, certainly saw that. And of course, when you came in on Monday, all signs pointed to a big
snow. Right.
Which is unfortunate. That's not the case anymore. But I think, you know, I was going to say exciting, but the ice is
a concern.
That's a concern.
Yeah, and again, this is
snow and rain and mix.
Yeah, the big change was that early it was looking like snow was going to be the highest impact. I'm bringing that down. I'm sure you concur with that, and bumping this ice up. This is a problem. So not just an inconvenience, but truly an issue. Now, we can talk forecast confidence. I would say, you know, we're most confident in the storm timing.
Yeah.
That hasn't really changed with the models at all. It's been showing coming in later Saturday and exiting early Monday pretty consistently, you know, give or take a handful of hours. So pretty confident with that.
One thing that was surprising was just the duration of this storm. I mean, not only, normally it would be like, you know, Saturday night into Sunday morning, and it's out of here.
Right.
But the fact that it's lasting Saturday night into Sunday and into
Sunday
Monday,
night, Monday morning, it just keeps going.
that's a long one with just every single type of precip.
So we take a look at that, brings up our next thing, precip type here. High confidence, but a lot of times it's like, well, we're going to see snow, we're going to see freezing rain, and you go, well, it's this or that, and that's what you have to worry about, your precip type. This time, we have confidence as forecasters here at 13 News Now because it's pretty darn evident we're going to see snow, then we're going to see mix and sleet, eventually freezing rain for parts of the area, and there'll be rain. It's all in play.
All in play. And the good news is now that the graph is finally starting to come into...
The graph is one of our models.
Yeah, sorry. The graph is one of our models. It's more of a short range, so we can't see it far out. But now that we finally can, we're starting to see that it's agreeing with, some of the other models.
Kind of reinforcing.
Yeah, which is a nice reinforcement.
Highly confident there, highly confident of the timing. This is the one area where there is still questions. Now, when we talk about the snow totals, this is the one everybody's like, well, you said I was going to do this. You said, no. We've been showing model output, and the general picture's coming clear. More snow to the north, less to the south and near the coast, but the models vary. So we're not sure whether we see maybe an inch or maybe we see 3 or 4 inches or even a little bit more.
And even if you did, that would be, Saturday night, right, into early Sunday morning. But then you're going to see that change on over to some rain and mix. So even if you did get a couple of inches, it's likely going to
It's going to get washed away anyway.
Yeah.
So, not the greatest event for snow lovers, although some areas north will see more. Again, models have been trending down a little bit generally in the chances for the higher amounts. So, kind of tough to get excited about that. You see the snow potentials there. Guys, the bottom line, this is kind of a moving target. So, we really, really want to stress that you stay tuned over the coming days, and we will be working to keep you updated. Hunter, thanks so much for being a part of the Weather Desk today. We're going to do this again tomorrow, an hour-long version. We've got more live interviews set up for tomorrow as well. We'll be keeping an eye to the storm. We'll keep you updated. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on the Weather Desk.